Hi, this is Roger Moore, and you're listening to James Bond Radio.
Hello and welcome to episode number 202 of James Bond Radio. This week we are continuing our 007th birthday celebrations with two more JBR listener guests. This week we have Mr. Mike Kirwan and Mr. Terrance Layhew joining us. And with me, as per usual, is good old man from not Uncle, but Cardiff, Chris Wright. How you doing, buddy?
Not bad, not bad. Actually, yeah, that'd be quite good, the man from Uncle. Although I thought you were going to say the man from Del Monte. I'm not sure if anyone else would get that reference. Yeah. But
do they grow oranges in Cardiff? Probably not.
Probably not, no. I'm good, doing good, Tom. Yeah, looking forward to a couple more listener interviews. Last week's was great fun. Yeah. Looking forward to... And I like how our listeners are very well spread around the globe, shall we say. It'd be good fun to see what we get out of today's episode.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So obviously we've got a mix. We've got a mix of those we drew out of the hat, and then some people we invited on. Like obviously a couple of weeks ago we had Alan and Gillian Porter and Matt Wood from Shaken Not Stirred join us. And this week we thought, because he's been working hard in the background for us, good old Mike Cohen, being the JBR editor in chief, he is the man responsible for bringing you the wonderful sounds of JBR every week. So we thought, what better time than get him on the show as well, and we can learn more about Mike and explore his love of Bond as well. So he's going to be up first, and I did discover that Mike has a shared love of American pro wrestling. That was, dude, when I was a wee lad, I was such a hardcore Hulkamaniac that I would literally burst into tears whenever Hulk lost a fight, which wasn't often, let's be honest. He used to pretty much win them all. But when it went wrong for him, I was an absolute mess. And I remember one year in particular when he faced off against The Undertaker, I was so nervous. This was, I probably think 1991 or 1992. I was so nervous, I was actually shaking. And my mum thought I was going to like pass out or something. So she made me go to bed and calm down. And I couldn't watch the fight. And then I woke up the next morning and I had to have my parents tell me that it was okay because Hulk won. And then I was all right. I was like, oh, all right, thank God for that. And then I could watch it in peace because I was that worried about it. You know, crazy times.
Well, I was into my wrestling back in the day. Did you ever go as far as to dress up as your hero of wrestling?
I never did, but my day to day after I would get home from school, I had a little plastic ring and I had all the figures. And back in those days, I used to watch wrestling videos, right? And I had a little tape recorder with a microphone on it, and I would record the theme entrance songs for each of the fighters.
Yes.
And then I would sit there and I would make them have an entrance with a little action figure, and I would like fast forward through the tape, play Bret the Hitman Hart's entrance theme. I'd have him walk down, and they'd be like, right, he's up against the Bushwhackers. All right, to rewind, find the Bushwhackers, press play, and then I would just fight and watch hours upon hours of WWF wrestling. As passionate as I am about Bond, man, in that brief period of my life, I was that passionate about the Hulkster as well. I really was. He was like my main man for a good couple of years. And then I moved on from it pretty quick, but that fire burned bright for me for a little while there.
It's a good age for wrestling though, isn't it? Sort of 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yeah.
Obviously some people are well into their wrestling for their whole life, but it's good fun. I remember dressing up as the Ultimate Warrior. Yeah. I had these shoelaces. They were like black with like fluorescent yellow sort of lightning stripes on them.
Yeah.
And they looked kind of warrior-esque. So I remember tying them around my slender arms at the age of 9 or whatever. And then I formed a tag team with a mate of mine, and we were called Thunder and Lightning.
That's great. I like that, man. That's yeah.
And then one was kind of like more the power one, and then the other one a bit more of the jumping around kind of guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good.
Very
good
nice,
fun,
man.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. All right then.
I was just going to say before we get into the interviews, I had a little Bond thought recently.
Oh yeah.
That I wanted to kind of rack your brains on and see what your opinion of it was. Now,
give it me.
Occasionally, we've seen double O's on the same mission. If we think of GoldenEye, obviously Bond and Alec Trevelyan. We think of Living Daylights. You got 002, 004, and Bond. My question to you, Tom: if every actor who has played Bond was indeed a 00, not necessarily 007, but a 00, which of the other Bond actors would they work best with on a mission? And which two actors playing Bond would be the worst to put together on a 00 mission?
That's a good one. So, okay. So one of them is 007, and then one of the other actors plays a different 00.
Or they're just 00s. They're just two 00s. So one of them doesn't have to be 007. There's just two 00s. Which two would get on the most and be the best for the mission? Which two would be an absolute disaster putting them together for a 00 mission?
It's because Bond is such a lone wolf, man. I feel that's a challenge to think of them like that. But I tell you who does come to mind, who I think would make quite an interesting pair, would be Roger and George.
Oh,
right.
Okay, tell me about that.
And I'll tell you why, because firstly, I remember Roger and George were in touch with each other. They would email each other in real life from time to time. So they were kind of like mates to a degree. But it would be a bit like the Persuaders, wouldn't it? I feel like he'd sort of, George would be the sort of, you know, the runaround geezer kind of. I'm blanking on the dude's name. Who was the other dude in the Persuaders? You know who I mean. Tony Curtis. That's who I'm thinking of. Yeah, sorry, I had a brain fart for a minute. I can imagine George being a bit more like a Tony Curtis type character, and Roger just being Rog, in a wonderful way. I feel like the two of them could have hit it off. I would say Daniel and Tim, maybe.
Oh.
I imagine that would be quite a brooding pair, though. I feel like they would, you know, I don't know, they'd be quite quiet, wouldn't they? It wouldn't be much. No. I don't know. What do you think, though? Have you got a pair in mind?
I think Roger George is a good combo. I think Pierce, obviously we've seen him working with a 006. I think he'd be happy to work with another 00. His Bond. I think Sean is very much a lone wolf at his Bond compared to the majority, and Daniels as well. So I think if those two were put together, they might be the hardest to try and work together, because I think they'd both be wanting to do their own thing, and it might compromise the mission. Tom, I don't know. What do you think?
I think you might be right. I especially knowing. I suppose I'd say the trickiest would be George, because he's a bit of a tearaway, isn't he? And I feel like he likes to do his own thing as well in real life, as well as, you know, when it comes to Bond. So, I mean, to be honest, I would like to see Sean and George and see what that dynamic's like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because obviously he's the man that took over, so there's going to be some tension there, you know. And then
who's going to bed the most ladies that night? I think could be one of the.
I tell you what, man, I reckon that would be a close run thing. Don't you? Because both of them were legendary swordsmen, weren't they? And they slung it around a fair bit, didn't they, back in the day? So
I believe they did.
I would be intrigued to see that the numbers chart there.
I think there's a lot of overlap as well, if truth be
told. I bet there was indeed. Yeah, absolutely. But cool, good question, man. So, shall we crack on and talk to our editor-in-chief, Mike Cohen?
Yeah, let's have a good old chat. Here he is. Do it. The lovely Mr. Mike Kirwan.
My name's Bond. James Bond. Bond.
James
Bond, what do you think you're doing?
Keeping the British end up, sir.
Welcome to James Bond Radio. News, reviews, and discussion of all things 007.
Pussy. As you can see, I have no problem with female authority.
Oh, pipe down, 007.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to lie.
Welcome to the show, JBR editor extraordinaire, Mr. Michael Cohen. How's it going, dude?
Hi, how are things?
Very well, man. Very well indeed.
Yeah, it's about time I'm on. I've been wanting this since about 2014, so it's eventually happened, and I can kind of die happy now.
Now, for all of our listeners who don't know, you've come on board and helped us out a lot in the last year or so, editing a lot of the podcasts. So how did that come about? Do you want to tell us a little bit about how that happened?
So I initially contacted Tom because I was thinking I wanted to make a kind of radio documentary. That's the kind of thing I generally do with kind of college and my work and stuff. So I was kind of planning on making this one about generally fandom in general and stuff. And I got in touch with Tom to talk about James Bond and stuff. I interviewed him, and it was a lovely conversation. And I offhandedly mentioned that I edit stuff, and I'm quite the daft hand with audio and visuals and stuff like that. And one day out of the blue, I text Tom to, can't remember exactly what I asked you, but then you're like, oh yeah, you can do editing, can't you? And then Tom asked me to go on and can I edit the podcast? And I jumped at the opportunity.
And it's not looked back since.
No.
There you go. It's a long old process, isn't it? Editing, and it gets to the point sometimes where you're just like, oh fucking hell, I can't be looking at this screen for any more hours. And when you I remember you saying, because I said that when we had the chat that day, and you were like, oh, I love editing, it's brilliant. And I was like, huh. All right.
A plan is forming.
Yeah, editing can be a real kind of pain in the arse, but I get a kick out of it. I like kind of putting everything in sequence, and like, I think one of my favorite bits is just matching the audio with the video. I think it's quite nice getting them kind of perfectly synced. Editing isn't always fun though. The Christmas episode, the Boxing Day quiz, that was the bane of my existence for a day or two, because I just my laptop just wouldn't work. Every time I did something, it crashed, and eventually I had to hand it off to Tom before I just called it a night. I think it was like Christmas Eve or something. I just wasn't having any of it.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was probably due to the difficulty of the questions, and your computer just couldn't take it.
Yeah,
it was probably. I tell you what happened there as well. In just to go boring editing chat for a while, I realized Zoom had screwed up because we had all the different tracks of audio that Zoom records, and because we had loads of people on the call doing the quiz for long stretches where they weren't saying anything, so Zoom sort of like stopped recording people until they said something, and then knocked it all out of sync. No. So like there'll be times when Linda Zoom might go, oh yeah, great, like an hour in, and then you'd have to go in and find that moment somewhere where she said, oh great, and then drag it all the way over there, and it was an absolute fucking nightmare. But
yeah, I've been kept busy since the break from JBR. I'm editing Jack's podcast for him, and that's always been quite fun.
Very nice.
It's a lot more straightforward. It is just kind of make sure everything's kind of tight and stuff. But I'll just sit back, play on my Nintendo Switch, and listen to the whole lot, and then pick out bits I need to edit out, and I'm done.
Nice.
That's quite handy.
Beautiful. Sounds all right.
Stuff.
Excellent stuff.
Also, shout out to Jack's podcast.
There you go.
Bond and Banter. Go listen to it. It's wonderful.
I bet Jack will be happy with that. A nice little plug.
I hope he is.
So the main reason then, obviously, Michael, we got you on today's show, is to answer the brand new JBR Quickfire questions. There are now 10 of them. So we've added a few from the last time that we did a listener episode. So are you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be, Chris.
Excellent. Okay, so question 1, Michael Kirwan. What is your favourite James Bond film?
Depending on the day of the week, it's either Majesties or Casino. I think that's the boring answer everyone gives normally, but I think they're two of the best. I think Casino is probably the perfect Bond film in that it just has absolutely everything, and it's damn near perfect. The music in it is incredible by David Arnold. Daniel himself is brilliant. He comes out of the blocks and is firing all cylinders straight away. Eva Green as Vesper is amazing. You just have so much in that movie, which I think encapsulates Bond perfectly. And it's also like they brought it into the modern age brilliantly. Because you had Die Another Day, which I felt like I can go back and look at now and kind of not laugh at, but I can get something out of Die Another Day. But it's nothing compared to Casino Royale. And then you have Majesties. I went back and watched that, and I was thinking, I forgot how much I love this movie. It's the only movie that's like Bond movie that's made me cry at the end. Like that is, it really gets the kind of emotional claws into you, and it has my favorite Bond. Well, I suppose that'll answer a question later. I won't get to that yet, but it's just Lazenby is fantastic. I think the story is kind of classic Bond, and it kind of just, that's also one that kind of has everything. But I also think it has George, who is more, I always feel like he's the most human Bond, in a way, because he, like, especially in the scene where he's getting chased and he gets scared by the man in the bear costume. Like, I feel like that is Bond at his most kind of vulnerable and human. I think George plays that brilliantly. But yeah, Casino or Majesties. It's the boring answer, but they're two of the best, I think.
What was the first Bond film that you saw in the cinema, Michael? Just out of interest.
First one was Spectre. I'm quite young, so I didn't get into Bond until I'd say I was about 13, 14. So that would have been 2000, kind of 12, 13-ish. And Spectre was the first one I watched in the cinema. It wasn't the first Bond I watched, like first or whatever, but it was the first one I was quite hyped for. So Spectre will always kind of hold a special place in my heart, even though I know a lot of people nowadays are like, oh yeah, kind of gravitating away from Spectre, but I'll always be flying the flag for it, I think.
Yeah, good.
I'll always fly the flag for Spectre, but yeah.
Nice. Cool. All right then, man. Good choices there, man. I think it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because we all do have our opinions, but I think Majesties and Casino are the sort of, generally speaking, the Bond fans' choices, aren't they? You know, you might get From Russia thrown in there as well, but like those two seem to be the reigning two champions, don't they, at the moment? You know,
even just kind of listening through the podcast through the years, they're the two ones that get brought up so often that it's kind of like ingrained into my brain now. As they're kind of the two elite Bonds, and then you have like From Russia is up there as well, and then everything else kind of falls below it, even though I love them as well.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
that's kind of how it goes for me.
Absolutely. I think, Chris, you said this recently, didn't you? Because we've always said from the first day of the podcast that Majesties is in the top spot and Casino's like a millimeter behind it. But in recent times, they've jostled for you, haven't they?
They have.
Casino's in number one now for you, isn't it?
It was in number one, and then
is it jostled back?
Well, you know, I do the film polls on the Shaken Not Stirred every Friday, and it was Majesties versus Casino, and I was really intrigued to see because I hold them so level, and I love them both just the same as you guys. And I was actually surprised. I would have been surprised at whichever film won, just because I see them so close together. But Majesties, out of those that voted, outdid Casino, and I said, oh yeah, Majesties. Actually, I think that is my favorite. And then my fiance was like, really? I thought Casino was your favorite. And I think it just depends on the day, because for me they're the two most well-rounded films in terms of everything. Bond's character, you've got the action, you've got amazing character, like in terms of villains, Bond girls. I think they're for me the two untouchable ones.
That's why I kind of say day of the week thing, because it's whatever mood I'm feeling. If I want to, I'll look at Casino and say, oh, that's the best, nothing could ever touch that, and then I'll watch Majesties and say, no, that's the best, nothing could ever, and they keep flip-flopping. So I can't have one without the other now. They're just both in the conversation.
Absolutely. Cool stuff. Good choices, man. Question number 2 then, what is your favorite Bond book?
I don't know has anyone ever said this, but you might have got it recently, but mine's Forever and a Day.
Oh, yeah.
Which I know is sacrilege to some people listening. That's not a Fleming. But because I kind of got into James Bond and kind of the whole world of it kind of later on, I didn't start reading the books until about kind of 2 years or so into my fandom. And I read them through kind of my latter years of secondary school. And I loved reading them. I thought they all had great stuff about them. And I love Casino. I think Casino is a brilliant novella because it's kind of borderline novel / novella. And I think everyone loves Moonraker because it's fantastic. And I love the scene in Blades. And I think that's when kind of Bond's at his peak. But Forever and a Day is one of the books I anticipated, right? I had the beauty of kind of anticipating the book coming out. And I'd read Horowitz before. I read Trigger Mortis, but I kind of read that without having the Fleming books kind of read prior. So I kind of just read that offhandedly just because it came out. And so I haven't read that since. I need to go back to that. But after reading all the Flemings and a few of the continuations, And then I had, all right, Forever and a Day now. It's a prequel. It's going to the start of Bond. And I think Horowitz does an incredible job with that book. And me and we've talked about it, and like it's a book like I went out of my way, like I don't often go out of my way to read books multiple times, but that's one I've read 3 or 4 times because you can kind of breeze through it, and it's Bond, I think, at his best, but you can also tell he's like, because he's early in his career, he's forming the Bond we see in Fleming's books.
Yeah.
And I love the location, like the south of France is prime Bond locations for me and stuff. And I think it kind of works brilliantly. And I love Horowitz as a writer as well. So if you're saying my favorite Bond book is probably Forever and a Day. But if you're saying strictly Fleming, then I'd say probably Casino / Moonraker, but I'll take Forever and a Day.
Dude, nice. Forever and a Day is an absolute masterpiece. I remember reading it when it came out. I was sitting there in my armchair, and I have a rule, like I do a fair bit of reading on the odd Kindle. I do a fair bit of audiobook stuff as well, but I have a rule that whenever it's a new Bond, it has to be a hardback, and I have to be reading the actual thing, and there's no messing about. Like I'm fully absorbed in that thing. I've not got music on in the background or anything like that. And I remember sitting down and reading that, and then my missus was sitting across from me in another chair, and she kept saying, "You're enjoying that, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" And she's like, "You keep making these little noises," and I didn't even realize I'd done it. But every like page or two, I was going, "Ooh," like that, just to myself, and like giggling to myself and chuckling to myself, because the amount of times I had chills down my spine reading that book, it just got out of control after a while. I really enjoyed Trigger Mortis. Thought it was a great book, and I was like, "Yeah, I want more from Horowitz, please." But when he delivered Forever and a Day, I was like, "Oh my God, this is like leagues above." Like I've always said Colonel Sun was my favorite continuation book, but Forever and a Day is now. It jumped into the top spot for me. Absolutely adored it. Yeah, great choice. I
think one of my favorite bits, and I was talking about kind of George being the vulnerable Bond, and there's a scene in that book where he's caught by the bad guy, and he's not getting out. And there's basically this kind of a placebo effect thing where he throws acid on him, but it's not actually acid. And Bond's there, he is panicking. And essentially in that situation, he doesn't get out. He could have died in that situation. And I think it shows like early Bond at his most vulnerable. Like, this isn't a nice place to be. This isn't a nice job to have.
Yeah.
And it kind of helps you kind of understand where Bond's coming from and why he's doing what he is. And I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, and there's a moment, there's something Bond says as well, because like, spoiler alert if you haven't read it. So
yeah, sorry, I'll include a spoiler warning just before.
Yeah, good one. Spoiler alert. There's a moment where obviously 007, the previous 007, dies at the beginning of the book. So 007 is dead. James Bond comes in, who assumes the 007 mantle, but M has another. I can't remember what the number is, but M has another number in mind from. He's like, "Hey, do you want to take 003 or whatever?" And Bond goes, "If it's all the same to you, sir, I'd like to take 007 because it reminds the enemy that there's no stopping us. If you knock one of us down, there's instantly a replacement that comes in behind him." And I was like, "Yeah, man, that's a great thing."
I like that a lot, a lot. And what a title as well, Forever and a Day. I think it's a fantastic title, and it could make a good film title as well. I'd love him to do a third, in all honesty. Horowitz.
I reckon he will, man, because he's a proper fan, isn't he? He's not like just doing it for a laugh. He's into it.
Gets it, definitely.
Yeah. I think it'll also be interesting to see does the new IO interactive Bond video game that's coming out, because they've said that's going to be an origin story. Does it take anything from Forever and a Day, which I'd really like it to?
Yeah.
So that'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. Have to see. Okay, then, Michael. Question 3: who is your favourite actor to have portrayed James Bond?
This is easy. It's Rog.
Oh, straight away.
I tell you what, man, Roger's getting some extra attention these days. He's getting some extra love. I've noticed that answer is a lot more common these days than it used to be.
Do you know why though, Tom? I think some people previously have been a bit not afraid to say it, but a bit sort of unsure of the reaction that people will get, because there's been a lot of stuff said about Sir Roger's films in the past, and I think the love for Sir Rog has almost been a little bit hidden in previous times. But I think that has now been allowed to release with more people sort of feeling that they can say stuff like that. Do you think that's part of it? I don't know, but yeah, maybe. Michael, what is it about Roger?
I think you kind of if you go through the Bond actors, one of the things I love about Bond the most is that he's not a superhero, but he is a man that I do like. He's a man you kind of aspire to be, and how cool he is, right? And I think Connery is great, and I think he does, especially in Thunderball. I think that is the coolest Bond has ever been. I think Thunderball. He comes out with quips left, right, and center, and like some of the scenes in that movie are incredible for like showing how kind of amazing Bond is. But what I love about Roger is he's just always reassured. I never feel like Roger's going to die in a movie. Roger's always got it under control, and he's always got the quips. He's always got a judo chop to throw. And I think it's just me leaning. I kind of like the lighter-hearted Bonds as well. So I think Roger just kind of has everything for me. And I know in A View to a Kill, he's a bit old, but I think that's the charm of A View to a Kill as well. Like when I watch A View to a Kill, I can't think of a younger Bond in that. I just want to watch kind of an old Sir Rog and Patrick McNee, or Godfrey Tibbett, just frolic around and have a good time.
Big time.
That's what I really love about him.
It is a funny one, isn't it? Because there is that sort of, like you were saying about the vulnerability of George, where, gets scared by the dude in the bear costume and all that kind of stuff. So you have that, but you don't get that with Rog. You just get that self-assured sort of like coasting through everything, which some would look at as a weakness, wouldn't they? But then you can, on the flip side of that, you can just be like, yeah, man, there he is strutting around in his safari suit, and just love him for it, So yeah, man. So what would you say then? Because obviously you've said your big two movies, Majesties and Casino. What would you say is your best Roger?
I think Spy is the best Roger, but the one I go back to more than anything is probably Moonraker, because Moonraker is it's such a pleasant movie to watch, and I think it's the first. I think it is. I don't know if it's fully the first Bond movie I ever watched, because I have a vague memory, like a really vague memory, of Roger fighting the Python underwater. And when I went back and watched Moonraker, discovering all the Bond films, I'm like, I've seen this before. I remember seeing this, and I must have been about 5 or 6 watching it, but I can't really remember what movie it was. It was on telly, and I came back. So Moonraker always kind of has a comfortable place for me, but I think Spy is amazing. Roger's one of them. Like, I kind of love all the Bond movies, but all of Roger's all hold a special place in my heart. Like, even ones I haven't seen. For Your Eyes Only a hell of a lot. I've probably only seen that 4 or 5 times. But every time I go back to it, I'm like, oh, this is wonderful, isn't it? I really love it. So it's kind of easy to pick Roger for me, because he's the one I always kind of gravitate towards. But then I really love all of the Bonds in their kind of own way. And not to discredit, say, even like Pierce, my fellow countryman, but I love Pierce, and I watched The World Is Not Enough. It was on TV the other day. I was like, oh, Pierce is great, isn't he? So
yeah, you got love for all of them, man. That's a beautiful thing. So being an Irishman, is Pierce from your neck of the woods, or is he?
Pierce is up the country. He's from Drogheda, so that'd been up above Dublin. I'm from down southeast. Waterford is the place, near Cork. So it's a place probably no one's ever heard of, but it's in a nice area. It's nicknamed the sunny southeast, even though we never get sun, because Ireland's terrible. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool, man. All right. Question number 4 then. Who is your favorite Bond girl?
Favorite Bond girl is Tracy. She has the reassurance I don't think many other Bond girls do. And she plays it off so well, because she's reassured, but yes, she's also very vulnerable. You can tell, because she wanted to kill herself in the pre-titles. So she shows that vulnerability straight away. But then when Bond meets her in the casino, she comes across as incredibly reassured, like nothing phases her. So it's that kind of the two bits of her character kind of playing against each other I really love. I think Diana Rigg's fantastic. I really love the Avengers, so that's, to me, I think Diana Rigg's fantastic. So yeah, it's something, again, I don't really think about too much because it's always been Tracy. I love a lot of the other Bond girls as well, but Tracy's always the one I gravitate towards. I think Vesper's fantastic as well. She has that reassurance as well. She's much like Tracy in that I think they're the two female characters that Bond falls in love with, and I think it shows in both Eva Green's and Diana Rigg's performance, because I feel like they'd marry Bond, whereas I don't feel like any other actress would, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right in the sense that most of them are sort of, they're a fling. Bond's going to move on, she's going to move on, and whatever. But with those two are the ones, aren't they? It's there's definitely a deeper connection in there. And I always think as well with Tracy is you really believe the love story there. There's always that moment in the back of the car where Draco's sitting between them and they're just sort of like grinning at each other and eyeballing each other either side of him and stuff, and you really believe that, man. She's the business, man. I think if you were to do like a poll of normal civilians and say ask who the ultimate Bond girl is, I think a lot of normal people would say Honey Rider or something, because she's got that iconic moment, obviously. But I think for the thinking man's choice, it has to be Tracy, and with Vesper a millimeter behind, or maybe even joint, depending on your thought process.
It's like Casino Majesties. They both are kind of level pegging for me, but I think Tracy just slightly tips it because I prefer Diana Rigg as an actress, and I love the Avengers, and I love going back to kind of those old kind of 60s spy movies and stuff like that. And to me, that's, I can't say nostalgia because I'm not nostalgic for, because I've only seen them kind of in the last few years, but it provides comfort and warmth, if you know what I mean. So I think Tracy takes it just because I think I prefer Diana Rigg, but both the characters are amazing.
Spot on.
Yeah, great stuff. And they're both so complex. I think that's what adds hugely to it. And I love the fact that you mentioned a bit about vulnerability and the different sides to a character, because having that, seeing one side reinforces the strength of the other when she turns. Like you said, in that casino, she's so confident. You see George walking down those steps looking like pure confidence, but then Diana Rigg, like Tracy, is exactly the same level of confidence as she's flitting around the casino, gambling with money she hasn't got. So that's a brilliant point. I really, really like that.
I like how she kind of backs up. It's like she knows she has no money to gamble, but she gambles anyway. And when she finds out she loses, she's kind of like, okay, and then just leaves. It's like it hasn't phased her whatsoever, even though you reckon in her head she's probably very phased, but she won't show Bond that, which I quite like.
Good stuff. Okay, then, Michael, question number 5. Who is your favourite Bond villain?
Favorite Bond villain. This is tough, actually, because I love them all in their kind of own unique way. I think my favorite is probably Le Chiffre. I love Le Chiffre because he's the main villain of Casino Royale, but he's not the main villain of the whole story, if you know what I mean. He has his place in Quantum or Spectre or whatever. And I love the desperation of that character. So you find out kind of like his plans is like, right, he's a banker and he needs to get money quickly. So it's like, right, I'm going to short stocks on a plane, and Bond stops it. So he's panicking. He's like, what do I do now? Right, I'm going to hold a big poker tournament. And he loses that. And it's just his slow descent into madness, which I absolutely love. And I think Mads Mikkelsen's fantastic. So I'd say Le Chiffre, but like I think every Bond villain nearly has their own kind of wonderful bits about him. I think one of the most underrated villains is Elliot Carver. I love Elliot. I think Jonathan Pryce plays him so, he hams it up so much, but I get so much out of it. I always love looking at him because he's just always says something funny, or because he doesn't seem like a real human being. And I think that's sometimes what you want out of a Bond movie. I think you want him to be over the top and a bit maniacal. And
larger than life sometimes.
Yeah, larger than life. I think Carver, Jonathan Pryce plays Carver exactly like that, which is one of the reasons I love him as well. But I'd say Le Chiffre. I think he feels real, and I love like the whole character arc for him. I think it kind of plays out brilliantly in Casino Royale.
We've had a lot of love for Lashif on these interview episodes, rightly so. And I love how obviously you've mentioned Carver, completely different types of villains, but there's a lot of love for both. And Carver doesn't get mentioned as much, so that's really nice. I like that. It's good.
I just think Carver's. I just think he's so funny. Like you're watching him and he's like, the idea that he owns a newspaper and he's trying to cause World War III is fantastic. Like, just so he can make a bit of extra money and everyone can read his newspaper. It is full egomaniac, which I think is brilliant. So I think that's one of the reasons why I really love Carver. And then you have other villains like Blofeld, any iteration. I think they all bring something different to it. I quite like Largo because I think Largo has this. He looks like a perfect Bond villain, but he also has this kind of way he looks at Bond, because Bond in that movie, he prances around kind of willy-nilly doing whatever the hell he wants, and then you have Largo kind of side-eyeing him the whole time. It's like, I hate you, and he just wants to kill him, and Bond just every time just gets rid of him, and I think it's fantastic. But you could go through all the villains, and I could give you reasons why I really like them and a few reasons why I probably wouldn't.
That's not the game, Michael.
So Dr. No. But yeah, I have a lot of favorite villains, but Lashif.
Nice.
Good answer, man. I feel like Lashif might rise into the number one spot with a bit more time passing in the general feelings in the world. I think like Goldfinger usually gets the number one spot in the polls and stuff these days, but I feel like with enough time passing, I feel like it might be Lashif that takes that spot. And if he doesn't get it, I feel like he at least deserves 2 or 3 at the very least. But there we go. Next question then, Mike, is what is your favorite Bond theme song?
I was listening to a few Bond themes before this to kind of get myself prepared and in the zone, and I think it's You Know My Name.
Ooh, yeah.
A lot of my answers are leaning very much towards Casino, but I think You Know My Name, it's brilliant because it gets you really hyped for a movie, I think. And it's so different to a lot of other Bond theme songs that are kind of, especially in recent times where there's a lot of kind of slower ballad type, kind of Adele, Sam Smith, Billie Eilish. I think it's a jolt that really it kind of brings the film to life in a way, and it gets me really hyped, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'd say You Know My Name. It's the one that I kind of go back to and listen to the most often, I'd say.
There's like a certain aggression to it. It's a very masculine song that, like you say, pumps you up. It's a good song to listen to, like if you're going to go out for a run or something. It's it is a great one. And like I always say, man, the lyrics to that tune are absolutely spot on as well.
I think one of my favorite bits is the drums right before the chorus. And like I just find myself doing that, just the drum kind of hitting itself, because it gets me so kind of hyped and stuff. But I'd say You Know My Name is probably the favorite there. But again, I kind of love all of them, to be honest with you. Maybe not Die Another Day. That's the one I probably, if it comes up on Spotify, skip. Sorry about that.
I like the cut of your jib, Kerwin. You're on the same page as me.
The funny thing is, actually, I really love Madonna. I think
maybe not. Maybe I'll take that back after that.
it's the one Madonna song I'm like, nah, I don't like that. But my dad listens to a lot of Madonna, so I just grew up in a car listening to like A Prayer and stuff like that. So I actually quite like Madonna. I just don't like that song.
She is a ledge. There's no getting away from it. Absolutely.
Yeah,
definitely. Okay, Michael, on to question 007. Now, there's 2 potential answers here. First of all, what is your favourite James Bond location? This could be one that you've been to, if you have, or what was the one that you'd most like to visit?
I'd love to tell you which ones I'd visited, because that would be precisely 0. No, well, theoretically, I did visit London when I was like 10, but at that point, I just wanted to go to Legoland, so I wasn't really thinking about Bond. But like, if there's a location I really want to visit, you kind of have the obvious ones like Piaz Gloria, Jamaica, the Bahamas. But I think Japan is a place I really want to go in the future anyway, because so much of my kind of pop culture fandom crosses over with Japan. And it's kind of a thing I think about going to Japan sometimes, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's lots of Bond stuff there too. Like, it's kind of like it overlaps, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Japan is like just a place in general I really want to go to because it looks so mental, but also so beautiful at the same time. And I've had my cousin, he went there and he said it was fantastic. So
yeah,
Japan, yeah,
Japan's right up the top of my to-do list as well. I've never been, but I would love to. And like you say, there's some, like the Osato building is still there and just looks exactly as it did, and all the rest of it. But yeah, that's a great spot. Yeah, 100%.
You've just got to be careful of those magnet carrying helicopters. They're everywhere over in Japan. So
yeah, it's a shame. I'll use my kind of car with the Sony built-in TV to make sure I spot them all. But it's kind of, I'm looking forward to, because I'm still quite young, I can kind of go out of my way and I will visit as many locations as I can and hopefully go on a few JBR meetups.
Absolutely.
And I'll get to the locations. I'll be quite happy. But it's a thing that crosses over, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Japan would be excellent. Yeah, that'd be amazing. I have to do a JBR trip there one day, Tommy.
Big time. Question number 8 then, Mike. What is your favorite pre-title sequence?
Oh, favorite pre-title sequence. I might have to go Casino again. I keep bringing it up, but like I love it. It doesn't feel like every other pre-title sequence, if you know what I mean. It has that kind of 2D. It has the poker kind of symbols and stuff within it. I love the colors of it, and I like the way Bond's kind of fighting his way through people.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what I mean, kind of throughout that. And I love at the end it kind of has the bullet holes going 007 reporting for duty, and it's kind of like you just learned he's 00. So the pre-title sequence kind of helps tell that story.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it has a really cool bit in it, which I kind of, I don't know why, but I really love it, is when Bond catches, your man's going to stab Bond, and he catches his hand and kind of picks the knife out of his hand and stabs him in the back. I always go back and think that's just the coolest thing ever. I'd love to see that in the actual movie of him just kind of taking the knife out and stabbing the person, but I suppose the pre-title sequence will do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is a great one, isn't it, as well? Like knowing how, like, you remember when it's like the first and only black and white pre-title sequence. Remember when they started talking about that while they were shooting the film, and it was like, whoa, that's different. And that is such a nice thing, because it makes it seem a lot darker, and it has a whole different feel to that pre-titles because it's black and white. But there's I don't know, there's just something really special about that. Just seeing him get that the first 2 kills you see him do, obviously. My one complaint is that I feel like they should have just hidden his face for that first thing. And he takes the shot, Dryden's dead, he leans forward from the shadow into the light and says, yes, considerably, puts the gun away. Gang, 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 gang. That would have, I mean, it already blew my mind, but that's just the extra ingredient that would have blown my mind even more. Yeah.
But yeah, like I think Casino just is my answer for nearly everything, because I think it's just that perfect, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Right, let's see if it's your answer for question number 9 then, Michael.
This
is another new one. Okay, I don't think it will be, but what is your most controversial or unpopular opinion as a Bond fan?
Oh, I like this. I don't have a hell of a lot, because I'm one of the I don't advocate for disliking a lot of things, and it's my friends often make fun of me because they'll talk about stuff and say, oh, I really didn't like this, or I really didn't like this, just in general, kind of talking about media and stuff. And I'm like, I quite like that. And I always get the piss taken out of me because I love everything. But like a controversial Bond opinion, I don't know. I think a lot of people will kind of have their own opinions. They're quite strong about them. Whereas I like to just kind of take a step back and think, look, it's okay to like everything if you like. I don't really have any controversial opinions. I kind of just enjoy everything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe your controversial opinion is that you absolutely like everything and there isn't anything that you dislike. And in some people's eyes, it might be controversial.
If you gave me a few minutes, I could probably think of one. But like off the top of my head, I don't have a massive controversial opinion. I'll say I'll bring this up actually because it's something I kind of spent the last few months studying, is that I think 67 Casino Royale, I don't think it's a great film, but I think it's definitely going out of your way to worth watching. I think that's what a lot of people might not think. because I was talking to some of the JBR kind of family group, and when we kind of brought up the topic of 67 Casino Royale, I was surprised by how many people haven't seen that movie. And I was thinking, well, surely everyone's seen it. It's kind of a part of Bond, you know? And a lot of people is like, well, I don't want to go see it because I know it's going to be terrible, and like, but it's not that terrible. It makes absolutely no sense. But I think there's so much you can really get out of it. I think it's quite a funny film, and it's very cleverly written in that I think a lot of the lines are. It's not cleverly written from a standpoint of it makes sense, because in that way it doesn't. But I'd say my controversial Bond opinion is that you should go out of your way to watch the 67 Casino Royale, and I think it's quite good, and I quite like it.
Good. That is a controversial opinion.
Yeah.
If I've ever
That
heard
is a
one.
very good one.
Because I was trying to think of like a controversial opinion with like the kind of Eon canon Bonds, but then I was like, I quite like Casino Royale because I did my second radio documentary on the making of the movie. And I think that's one of the most interesting making ofs a movie ever, because it's just incredibly bizarre, and kind of how it was made is mental. But kind of after completing the whole thing, I was kind of like, I want to go back and watch it again. And it has so many funny lines. It's so colorful and so wacky, and it's kind of what I quite like about the It encapsulates the 60s incredibly well, and I think if you haven't seen it, I think definitely go out of your way to watch it, because it is a part of Bond history after all.
Absolutely.
But like I quite like it.
All right, fair
Nice.
play.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Final question of the day then, Mike. Number 10 is, what is your favorite scene in the series?
I don't want to steal yours, Tom, so I'm not going to. But I think, do you know what? I think you could pick and choose any scene from when Bond's like in Thunderball. I bring that up again, but it's when he's clay pigeon shooting with Largo, and he says, "This seems terribly difficult." Shoots from the hip. No, it isn't, is it? And it's just that is to me peak Bond, if you know what I mean.
That
like,
is a great moment, isn't it?
I think I was even talking to Dan Gale for the initial Operation Thunderball episode, and he says how he kind of likes Never Say Never Again over Thunderball. I suppose another controversial opinion there but that's from Dan. But he said he's not a massive fan of how quippy Bond is in that movie. Whereas I think I think the opposite. I love how quippy Bond is. I love how kind of smooth and nonchalant he kind of goes about everything, and I think that's kind of the peak of him doing that, where like he's obviously faking it, and I think Largo knows he's faking it as well, but he's just waiting for Bond to show off, and then Bond does show off, and he's like,
I love Largo's response to it as well. He's like, "No, it isn't, is it?" And Largo's like, "No."
But you can really pick and choose from that movie. The scene where he hands Fiona the shoes getting out of the bath, and he just sits back in his chair and is like, "Yeah." And another little scene from that I love, when he pulls your man through the window and he just wraps the phone cord around him. That's not going to do much. The phone cord's going to fall off anyway, but he just does it because I think he gets a kick out of it, and it just looks funny. But I'd say kind of you can pick and choose from Thunderball.
I'm enjoying this love for Thunderball, Mike. This is because again, that's another film which is strangely, well, I find it strange that not everyone is keen on it. But I think there's so many amazing things. The dialogue, and like you said, I think peak Bond in terms of coolness, and potentially in terms of sneaky Bond with Palmyra and everything, it's pretty hard to beat Thunderball in those aspects, I think.
Yeah, I think I can understand why it gets kind of the rap of not being like everyone's favorite, because it's quite slow and there's a few really dodgy bits in it. And kind of specifically the scene, I remember the first time I watched Thunderball, and it was the scene at the right end when Largo and Bond are fighting, and they have the sped up editing going through and it looks terrible. I'm like 12 years old or 13 years old watching that, and I'm thinking that looks awful. But kind of everything around it is fantastic. I think Bond is at least most confident. I like Domino. I think she's fantastic. yeah, I could sit down and watch Thunderball like any day of the week and kind of just enjoy myself. You know what I mean? So
nicely done. Yeah, there's a lot to love about that one for sure. All right then, man. Well, thank you for joining us, man. That was a very fun chat. I like your positive energy. I like that you're a Spectre fan. I love that you love a bit of Siraj. Great stuff, man.
Yeah, that is. I think any listener's dream to come on and talk about Bond on James Bond Radio. Like, I've been listening. I don't know if I've said this like to you. I probably have at some point, but like I've been listening since 2014. It's the podcast I always go to above anything else, really.
Oh,
and I think that's kind of like my lucky day when I kind of got the call from Tom to go editing, and now I'm here, and it's kind of the circle's kind of complete now, so I'm quite happy.
Oh, mate. Well, that's very kind of you to say. Thank you.
Yeah, and on behalf of us, thanks for doing a stellar job as well, because it's been like super helpful, and everything has been like everyone's really enjoyed the podcast since you've been helping with the edits and everything. So thanks from both of us as well, Mike. Cheers for that.
Yeah, I'm not particularly looking forward to the Watchers episode if I put in the amount of effort I did with the last one. If the Watchers episode comes out and people don't watch it on YouTube, I highly recommend watching it on YouTube.
I have to take a holiday off it as well when I do it. So yeah,
I think it was quite helpful you time coding everything for me, because or else I would have just been like, it would have probably taken me another 4 or 5 hours or whatever. But I think I put a lot of hard work into that one specifically. So it
came out amazing. It looked amazing.
The next watches of Bond, please watch on YouTube and like listen on iTunes as well. Have them both going at the same time. You can kind of sync them up and like watch it. Just, get more playtime for you, and we'll all be happy.
Brilliant.
Beautiful stuff. All right then, Mike, thanks so much for joining us, man. And I'm sure we'll have you on again. I realized I got it wrong, didn't I? I said what role does Mike have? And when we first came on board, and I said, what is he? Is he Tanner? Blah blah blah. But being the tech man, he's got to be Q. Surely that would be the resident JBR Q.
I will take Q.
There you go. Sweet. All right, man. Nice. Cool. Thanks again for joining us, man. And we will see you soon, no doubt.
Thank you. Bye.
Take it easy, Mike. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, there we go. That was good getting Mike on the show. I think it was long overdue, but definitely worth the wait. What do you think?
Yeah, man. I remember Mike would send us in voicemails years ago.
Oh, I know.
In some of the voicemail episodes and stuff. So it's cool to have him involved. Absolutely. And I do like a fellow man who's firmly in the positivity boot. You know what I mean? He's like, he likes all of it. He's not got many complaints and negative thoughts. So that's always a nice thing. Somebody who can appreciate all of Bond in all its different forms.
Yeah, well, that's Bond fans. You meant to like, if you're a fan of something, you meant to like it, aren't you? And it is good that Mike he couldn't think of anything, could he? Yeah. Sort of negative to say. So. Yeah, good stuff. Good on him.
Good stuff. Nice one, Mike. All right, then. So next up, we have Mr. Terrance Layhew, all the way from the United States of America. So, shall we chat to Terrance?
That's it. Let's go and speak to Terrance from Iowa. Terrance Layhew from Iowa. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I am living the dream, guys. How about you?
That's a great answer, dude. You sound crisp, clean, and clear. And look at you look like you've just stepped out of MI6 off to do a mission. Look how well dressed you are and clean and prim and proper. I'm really impressed.
Thank you very much.
Good stuff.
And what's life like in Iowa? Obviously over there.
We got a nice warm spell, and then all of a sudden everything got dreary, dark. It looks like the opening of Moonraker.
Ooh, nice.
Where it's just a depressing English day, I guess.
Okay. Oh, hang on a minute. It's not always depressing.
So a little birdie tells me you are a podcaster as well, Terrance. You're part of the podcasting brotherhood. So tell us about that. What's going on?
So I've got one show that I do regularly. I've been doing it for 5 years now, the Intellectual Agrarian Podcast. My full-time job is I'm an organic inspector. So when you joke that I look like I'm fresh out of MI6, I actually do work for 4-letter agencies going on missions. And then the other one I do is called Suit Up Philosophy, and that's a little bit new, more recent.
Nice. So what are those podcasts like? What would we expect when we tune into one of those podcasts? What are you talking about?
with the intellectual agrarian, you get to learn all about agriculture, the things you didn't know you wanted to know about farming.
All right.
Well,
cool.
I'm hooked already, Tom. I don't know about you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. And what about the other one, the philosophy one?
Suit Up Philosophy, that one's very experimental still. It's mostly just me talking about why people should be dressing better and how to be fit for every opportunity.
Whoa. All right, cool.
Well, I feel very underdressed right now, Tom.
Now I'm sitting here in a hoodie. I feel slovenly, Chris. How about you, mate?
Yeah, I know. I've got a Moonraker t-shirt on. That'll make me feel better.
There we go. All
Looks
right.
fantastic.
Yeah, thanks. Terrance.
Right then, should we crack on with the quick fire questions, Chris?
Yes, let's do it. Okay, question 1. Terrance Layhew, what is your favourite James Bond film?
I knew this one was coming, and it's hard to answer to a degree. It's kind of two. It's always between two. I'm sure you guys get that answer a lot. It's either From Russia with Love or more often lately, Casino Royale, just because I guess it's, again, you have the bias towards the Bond of your generation, I guess. And Casino Royale, it's just such a rocking film. Nearly perfect.
You like your down-to-earth Bond, don't you, Terrance?
I do. I'm not so much with the fantastical. I love Roger Moore. I've come to appreciate Roger Moore more and more. But once we get off-world, I start getting a little bit less interested.
I can understand that. That's a fair point. All right, good stuff. So, From Russia with Love, Casino, level pegging. Is there one that's like a millimeter above the other, or are you
right now it's Casino, but they trade places.
Yeah, I bet they do. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because, like we often say, when you have films that have been around forever, that they have that A, the nostalgia thing, but B, they've had so many more years, decades to be classics. And then when you get something like Casino, which is undoubtedly also a classic, but it's a newer one. So it's like you gotta. Is it going to still be here in 60 years, like Dr. No is for us, and all that, and From Russia? You know what I mean? So there needs to be some time as well. But I mean, I'm firmly in the camp that it will be. But it's a funny one. That.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Casino as well. You'll never, the amount of films you probably watched when you were younger with before Casino came out. Obviously, you had a lot more viewings, but now. Casino is almost playing catch up in terms of viewing, but because it's such a good film, it probably will get there one day. But yeah, it's. I think those two are right up there. Great choices.
All right, question number 2 then. What is your favorite Bond book?
That one, it's traded a little bit over the years, but I think it's Moonraker because as weird as it is that the film is the most out of the world Bond, I feel like the Moonraker book is almost one of the most down-to-earth Bonds, despite the fact that it's a villain deciding to destroy London. It's so odd and unique compared to all the rest of the books.
It is indeed. Do you know what? It's a funny one, that, because I remember when I first read Moonraker, I wasn't a huge fan of it because most of it takes place in England, which for me is a very grey and drizzly and dreary place. And in my Bond, I feel most at home with my Bond when he's somewhere in the Caribbean. You know what I mean? When he's in Jamaica and he's doing all that kind of stuff. That to me is, when I think of Fleming's Bond, that's what I picture, you know? So it lost some points for me then. But then when I reread it years later as an adult, I was like, oh, I didn't realize how good that was. And that is an absolute, I would say, I don't know, it's such a tricky one. But for me, I think Moonraker, the book, it might be a top 3 Fleming book, I think, for me. Yeah. What about you?
Well,
Chris?
and the scene with Blades. I mean, this is what makes Fleming so great as a writer, is that he's able to make playing a card game seem like the most thrilling and exciting thing you could possibly be reading.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. I do. And do you know what? I also like the relationship with M in that as well, where M's a bit uncomfortable to ask him to do it. And I love that. I like to see a little bit of the real M behind the duty and the Admiral. You know what I mean? I think that's a lovely moment. What about you, Chris, man, with Moonraker? Where does that
Moonraker's right up there for me. I haven't read the books for a little while, but my 2 favourites tend to be either Moonraker or From Russia with Love. They're my 2 favourite novels that I tend to go back to. And Moonraker as well. I think the descriptions of the car chase is brilliant. Like, it's so good. And the villain, like Drax, the whole, you know, I know parts of the villain have been used in certain villains within the film, but I think he's great. He's such a good villain. And I'd love to see some sort of
version of it, if possible. I know it never happened, but sort of a filmed version close to the novel would be fantastic. But yeah, brilliant, Terrance, great choice. Okay, on to question 3 now. Then this will be interesting. Who is your favourite actor to have played Bond?
I have to go with the answer that feels the most right at this moment, which is Sean Connery, because even though he had the distinct advantage of being the first, he just embodies everything we think of when we think of the character so perfectly that I have to go with Sir Sean.
I think it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because you've always got that thing of your favorite and the best.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, man, when you see him at that casino table, that is, especially as well with the times, because I often say, well, a lot of people often say that it's that each Bond were perfect for the times in which they were Bond in. And I think that's absolutely right. But if there is one timeless Bond, like we can all laugh at Roger in the safari suits and stuff now because the 70s were outrageous. But that's a timeless call. When you see him at the table in Doctor No with that tux on and all the rest of it, that's never going to go out of date. That's always going to look amazing, and that's always going to be cool.
You can always rewatch that scene, and
Absolutely.
It just looks perfect. The dangling cigarette, just cool as anything.
Yeah,
the timing as well, spot on, and the amazing thing is just not only how perfect, but how perfect the very first time. Like, it wasn't a warming up for movie 2 or movie 3. He had it straight away, nailed it. Like, just that sort of charisma and everything. He had it in spades, and obviously, everyone has brought stuff to the role, but there is that argument there. If someone else had played Bond first, it might not have been a French. They might have done a couple of films, and that could have been it. But because of Sean, it's where it is now, really. At least partly due to Sean. So
it's the
one of the
lightning
first
in a
superstars.
Bottle. Yeah, that's it. It's the lightning in a bottle thing, isn't it? Where it's the perfect man with the perfect film at the perfect time, and it's like that's such a rare thing to be able to catch, and they nailed it, didn't they? 100%. Good answer. Cool stuff. Question number 4. Who is your favorite Bond girl?
If we're talking about someone I'm just going out with, definitely Tatiana Romanova.
Okay.
From Rush with Love.
Very nice. Good choice.
Very much so.
Is it the choker? Or?
It's definitely the choker. Like, yes. Oh, so much so. If it was someone I was settling down with, Tracy is so amazing. Like, she's the Bond girl that can go the distance. But if it's just a nice long train ride, then yes, Tanya.
I like the way you phrase that. That's a beautiful thing. Yeah, man. That's a good pairing. I think I would say for me, Tracy and Vesper are very close in terms of just that they're badass characters. But for me, I think Tracy just wins above all, because I love the fact that she doesn't take any shit. She's doing her own thing. She keeps Bond guessing. You know what I mean? She's the one that's left the hotel room and kind of left him there, and she's the one that just kind of rescues him from in the skating rink and all that kind of stuff. She's behind the wheel. She kills Gunther. Is it good? I've got friends in my brain from my missus watching at home. Gunther, that's it, isn't it? Sorry.
That'd be a different movie.
It would be, wouldn't it? Very much so. Yeah. So, yeah, she's the businessman, Tracy, 100%.
Yeah. Well, she's probably... There's very few Bond girls that have many, many different facets in terms of what their abilities are. And like you said, like car racing, skating, skiing, fighting, she's articulate, she's intelligent. Her sort of list of superlatives just carries on immensely.
She gives Bond a challenge.
Yes, yeah. And Tom, there's a line that you always go back to where, Teresa was a saint. I'm sort of Tracy. I want to be known as Tracy or something like that. And that sums up her character perfectly, doesn't it?
Big time.
But Tanya's brilliant as well, because with that we don't often get Tanya coming up, do we? Tatiana Romanova.
I remember Raymond Benson chose Tanya years ago when we first started the podcast. But she comes up quite rarely, I guess.
But she's a stunner, so absolutely. Great choice.
Yeah, big time.
Okay, on to question 5 then. Terrance, who would you say is your favourite Bond villain?
Le Chiffre.
Oh.
He's the most realistic, and he has that great line where he's asked, "Do you believe in God?" And he says, "No, I believe in a reasonable rate of return."
Oh.
I use that line as often as I can in real life.
And how often is that?
I think it's 3 times now.
That's brilliant. Yeah. He is the business, man. Yeah. I absolutely love that dude. And I think what he did with that role is amazing. Like when you think of those guys, like,
I just thought I've got to bring this. Look, there he is, a little Funko Pop of him.
There he is. I love the fact that you had him to hand as well, right?
I know.
I love that he's holding the little. He's holding the beating
torch rope
implement.
thing. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, that
and
is
he's got a little bit of blood on his eye. Can you just see?
Oh, that's wicked, man. I need to get him one of this. Do you know what? I one of the things that you mentioned about Moonraker there, about the card game being exciting in terms of the book. Mm-hmm. Playing a card game on screen in a movie could easily be the dullest thing you've ever seen in your life. And when you look at the tension between the two of those dudes, you've got Bond versus Le Chiffre sitting across the table, and the way they eyeball each other, and just the tension is you can cut it with a knife, man. He's brilliant. I've said it in one of our previous interviews for these birthday episodes, and I'm going to say it again. I think he might be not enough time's passed, right? So I can't say this with any certainty, but I think he might be my favorite Bond villain of all time. I think he's brilliant. I really like him. Anyway, Chris or Terrance, you can take over because I've rambled on about Le Chiffre for too long now.
Well, you touched on the realism side of things there, and that's definitely part of it. But also, in the poker game, when obviously Bond recognizes Le Chiffre's tell, and you can see just how, like, the next time he does it, and he recognizes that Bond spotted him, he's sort of really unhappy with himself. But then he twists that and uses it to his advantage. So he's super intelligent, really clever, and he's got a lot of determination. Obviously, we mentioned it before previously, but there's a desperation behind his character and what he needs and what he'll do to try and get it. And I think that adds to his character immeasurably.
I've actually started recently hosting poker nights that are like Bond themed, where I'm wearing tux, bow tie, all that stuff. And of course, one of the rules is we have to quote as many lines from Casino Royale as possible. So every time we get down, I'm just like, yes, perfect.
Beautiful stuff. Now, let me ask you this, right? Do you think Le Chiffre suffers for not having had a big set piece moment at the end of the film? Bond facing off against the villain, one-on-one, maybe that's a big fight or whatever it is. He doesn't have that, does he? He's got Bond, by the balls, quite literally. And then Mr. White comes in, gun in the head, boom, that's game over for Le Chiffre. So do you think he suffers for that, or do you think that's brilliant?
I think it's brilliant because it's different than what we typically get. And also the fact is, I think for the way that they were trying to set up with Quantum, it's the perfect tease. In part because anyone that's watched the films before, they're expecting that there's going to be something. But the fact that he's just immediately taken right out, and all it does is leave the audience asking who and why, it sets up perfectly for what they were then trying to do next.
Yeah.
So I think it works in the favor, but that's just because it's different. It's unusual.
Yeah. Do you know what? When I first saw Casino Royale, I was sitting in the cinema and the film ended, credits start rolling, and I heard a guy behind me go, well, that was different. And I thought, you know what? That is absolutely right. It was different. And we so needed something different, and in such a wonderful and beautiful way. But yeah, I love it, man. I think he's great. And I think the fact that that's the only villain that comes to mind, obviously, that he's on the run as well. It's not like he's got the grand master plan. He's on the back foot as well, and he's desperately trying to get out of this hole that he's dug for himself. And so that whole dynamic is very different as well, isn't it? But yeah, excellent choice.
Makes him a more interesting character instead of just a one-note hollow villain.
Indeed, yeah, definitely. Absolutely, 100%.
Because it's not only it's the sort of money laundering with the guys. Was it in Uganda? I think it was. Yeah, so they got those guys after him. Then you've got obviously Quantum / Spectre potentially after him. So yeah, he's kind of looking over his shoulder while trying to have to deal with Bond at the same time. It's great.
Absolutely, good stuff.
Brilliant.
Question number 6 then, Terrance. What is your favourite Bond theme song?
I don't mean for every answer to be Casino Royale, but You Know My Name is like, I've got my playlist of Bond soundtracks. Like when I'm getting ready to be pumped or amped for something, it's like the Daniel Craig ones first. And always the moment I hear those notes, da-dun, 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 just puts me right where I need to be.
Yeah.
Just doing that has made me get a little shiver there.
Yeah, it is true. It does have power, that one, I think. And I remember the very first time I heard it, and it was on the radio, and I remember my initial reaction was not positive because it was too guitar-y, like rock, and I wasn't expecting that, you know. And I thought, oh my God, it's almost like if the Foo Fighters did a Bond song or something, you know what I mean? And I was like, I'm just not sure I like this. And it took me a good few listens to warm up to it. And I tell you, the thing that made me warm up to it the most was just listening to those words and getting the amount of thought that had gone into those lyrics. And it was like, this isn't just some generic song that's just been farted out. It's like, it's some real care and thought that's been put into that song. And there's actually a mix somewhere, which I've never been able to locate again, which is less guitar-y and a lot more strings. And that's actually my favorite version. And it's a much more sort of Bondian sounding take. It is the same take, same vocal and everything, but it's just like the guitars are way lower in the mix, more strings, which I prefer. But the song is absolutely 100% top drawer. And when you combine it with the actual titles as well, man, that's an absolute knockout. What a great track to reintroduce Bond with.
And it suits the film perfectly. Like the energy in the song translates to the energy in the film. You've got Bond doing that parkour chase where he's running through walls, and it's like high tempo, high energy. And then you've got a song that matches that. And it just works brilliantly. Absolutely fantastic choice. Right, so on to question 7 now, Terrance. I don't know if this will have a casino-related answer or not. But what would you say is your favourite Bond location? And this could be one that you visited and also one that you'd like to visit the most.
So this one's a fun one for me because I was thinking, I knew this might be a question that was asked, and I was trying to think through in my head because obviously Peace Glory would be amazing to visit at some point. But for me, the thing I actually really want to see, this goes back to Tanya, I want to be on the Orient Express. I think that would be so cool because not only obviously Bond from Russia with Love, but I'm a big Agatha Christie fan. So Murder on the Orient Express, things like that. I just think it would be so cool because it's the only moving location.
Yeah. Do you know what? That is a great answer, actually. I follow the modern day version of the Orient Express on Instagram. It's like the Belmond chain of hotels now does that trip, and it's absolute fortune to do it. But dude, like there is something magical, isn't there, about Bond on a train, especially old school Bond on a train, and taking that trip, especially getting on the train at Istanbul and being at that station as well. I imagine would be a truly magical thing. The only problem is I would be wanting to fight people all the time. I'd need to have a fight on the train in order to have the authentic experience. Yeah.
And didn't Cubby say something? Didn't Cubby say something about, isn't it that Bond on a train just worked or something like that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, there's countless numbers. There's got to be at least a dozen odd train scenes, and pretty much all of them are bangers as well. They're all brilliant. Yeah. But I think the Orient Express would be fantastic. And that's funny, Tom, you said that because I have also looked into it as well. And I think you can do kind of day trips where you can kind of get on and get on at Paris and do a couple of few hours on there. But doing the whole overnight dining car, that whole luxurious sort of the steam train, everything like that, you're passing through, like Trieste and all these sort of places and Belgrade and everything. That would be incredible. And you would be thinking Bond, but you'd also be looking over your shoulder at the other passengers going, right, who's gonna be the one to try and stab everyone? Yeah.
I would absolutely, like, if that day ever comes, Chris, then we need to get on there together and we just have to have a fight on there. Okay. We've got to do it. Yeah, right. That is do you know, I think that might be the first time that's come up in all of our JVR history in terms of locations.
Brilliant answers.
Good one. I wasn't expecting that. That's cool. Good stuff. Question number 8 then, Terrance. What is your favourite pre-title sequence? This is another
I'm going to
new
go
question.
with the Living Daylights.
Yeah, baby.
Yes.
That's a great one.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
What is it about Living Daylights pre-titles that you like so much?
It's so, first and foremost, it's one of those times where they do the great thing where they hold off introducing who the new Bond is.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got that nice little secret bit, and it's just so cool. I mean, he's in the thing, and it ends so beautifully with Bond just sailing down onto the boat. He's like, "Can I borrow your phone?" And he's like, "My name is Bond, James Bond." It's not the best James Bond reading, but it's still it's so cool. And
Yeah.
I, being a book nerd, because I love the Bond books, when we see the Schmidt Speenham thing, if you know what it is, you're like, "Oh, this is epic." They're using it.
That is a beautiful thing, isn't it? Is because still to this day, obviously, we often talk about the Garden of Death, don't we, Chris? Where you have those set pieces from Bond, the Fleming books that haven't been used on screen yet, and you're like, "Oh, I'd love to see that one day." And I think License to Kill is a great example of sort of like taking different puzzle pieces together that belong to different things and sticking it together into one narrative. I think they did a great job there. But then, of course, with Living Daylights as well, it only being a short story and it only being the sniper sequence, they fleshed that out so well, man. And it is like that. I think Daylights has one of the strongest openings, even beyond the pre-titles, in the whole series. When you go, through that sniper sequence and the meeting with Saunders and all that kind of stuff, man. What a brilliant introduction to a Bond actor. I struggle to think of a stronger one. Dr. No is so great. It really is great. And I love GoldenEye too. I can't possibly choose definitively, but man, that Daylights one is absolutely top draw.
And you get to see Bond doing what Bond does best in terms of his action, the parachuting. You got him on top of the Land Rover going down the road, fight it like a really good hardcore fight. And then obviously ending up with the lady on the boat. It's just perfect. It is absolutely perfect. I think as a mini movie of Bond, it's brilliant. Right, only 2 more questions to go, Terrance. Okay, now this one is one of our new ones. Okay, what would you say is your most controversial or potentially unpopular opinion on Bond?
I like Quantum of Solace, and I like the Another Way to Die.
Okay.
Another Way to Die is like in my top 4 Bond songs, and I specifically will say it's the version of the soundtrack, not the version from the movie. Every time I watch the movie, I go, why does it sound so worse in the film than it does when I listen to it on my iPhone?
Okay.
So that probably. It was also my second Bond film I ever watched, so there's always that bias to it.
Okay. So was Casino your first?
My first was Diamonds Are Forever.
Oh,
and is my favorite guilty pleasure Bond film.
Yeah.
Like if I'm sick, I put on that movie and I just enjoy slightly overweight Connery and everything that goes along with it.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful answer.
I was just going to say it's really funny that you said that, because I was chatting to my fiance earlier on today about certain Bond songs, and she said, "Oh, I've got a Bond song in my head." I was like, "Well, which one is it?" And she's like, "The one that goes down now, now." And I'm like, "What? Another Way to Die?" And she's like, "Oh, just play it." And I played it, and it was the one that she was thinking of, and she loves it. And it's now been approved that we can have Another Way to Die in our wedding. It's one of the. I'm getting a certain number of Bond songs, and Another Way to Die is going to be allowed in the wedding.
Dude.
And I am the same as you. I really don't understand the hate for it. I love it. You know my name, fantastic. I think Another Way to Die, brilliant. Skyfall, I really like. Writings on the Wall, I'm so about. But I think Another Way to Die is I just don't understand the hate for it. I really don't. I think it's fantastic. My fiance thinks it's fantastic, so double thumbs up from us.
Congratulations on getting that into the wedding.
Yeah. I might be allowed a couple more. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
You've got yourself a good woman there, man. That's a good one. I tell you what, there's an energy to that track, isn't it? I get where people are coming from when they say they don't like it. because there's quite a lot going on, isn't there? Like I often said, you could make an edit of that tune and chop out, especially at the beginning, like the intro. There's a lot of stuff that you could get rid of. You could almost just start with the piano line, you know what I mean, and have that at the beginning. And I think maybe that's where a lot of people are coming from. That there's just a lot of, I think it might be a bit too hectic for a lot of people. You know what I mean? There's just a lot happening. But I tell you what, there's a real energy to that. And I enjoyed that from the word go when I first heard that. There was no warming up to it, which I did have with Another Way to, with You Know My Name. I liked it instantly. And it's when you see cue the music play, there's an energy and a vibe to it that just like gets you moving. I do appreciate that big time.
And we'll certainly have a few listeners that back you up with Quantum of Solace, the film as well. It is a very divisive film, isn't it? In terms of you'll get pretty much 50-50. But yeah, I think that's great. Big up Quantum of Solace.
Big up indeed. Final question for you then, Terrance. What is your favourite scene in the entire series?
There's a lot of thinking going on for this one.
I like that though. I like it because you know.
I think I'm gonna have to go with the bedroom scene from Rush with Love. I mean, obviously, it's the one that they use to screen test on top of it, but there's just something so fantastic about when Connery, he's wearing a bathrobe and he still swaggers in like he's in a tuxedo, just the business, carrying his gun. He's just like, just talking to her, shakes their hands, and then she makes a comment about her mouth being too big. And what I love is that this line is in the book even, and it doesn't sound sexual at all in the book. Yeah. But the moment it comes from Connery's lips, he's like, not for me, that is. And it's just perfect. I think that it just exemplifies some of the things that I love about Bond, which is that regardless of what situation he's in, he's got that savoir-faire and he just rolls right with it.
Yeah, there is an effortless cool to Connery's delivery where you put him in any situation and he can just handle it. Like another one I think it belongs to a similar kind of vibe is Thunderball, where he gives her the shoes when she's in the bath, and there's just like this cocky grin on his face, like a little smirk on his face that I adore him for it. I think it's beautiful. But yeah, like you say, man, an important scene as well. It's not just from that film, obviously. That is the Bond screen test scene, isn't it? So that's a very important one in all of Bond.
So here's a question to both you guys. How would you do about reenacting that scene? Do you think you'd be on the money?
Well, am I playing Bond or am I playing Tanya?
Well, I didn't mean you two together, but if you want. You can choose, Tom. Up to you.
I think that would be we'd have to do the screen test, wouldn't we? Maybe that's what we do on a future anniversary episode. Is everybody has to reenact the screen test and see if they'd be a good Bond. Yeah.
There we go. Do you know what's funny though, Terrance? When you said initially, you said it has to be the bedroom scene. My mind rattled through about 30, 40 different bedroom scenes or whatever it is. Just what could it be? What could it be? But as soon as you said From Russia with Love, it made complete sense. It really did. And yeah, what a scene.
Beautiful
great
stuff.
Great answer.
What a great one.
Yeah.
All right, cool. That's given, I think, us and everybody at home a good snapshot of your taste in Bond. Very solid choices. Very impressed with that. Good stuff. So before we go then, Terrance, just give everybody a quick plug on your podcast again, just so they know where can they find you and all that kind of stuff.
The easiest way to find everything that I do is go to terrancelayhew.com, which is TERRANCE, Layhew, LAYHEW.
Beautiful.
What a beautiful podcast voice you have.
It's
so smooth, isn't it?
That's why I do this.
You were born to do it, man, with a voice like that. That's so crisp and clean and clear. Absolutely. You're putting us to shame over here.
And how often are your podcasts out? Are they both weekly or one?
The Intellectual Agrarian is every other week, and Suit Up Philosophy is basically every Sunday, where it's hashtag Suit Up Sunday, guys.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Good stuff. Well, thanks for joining us then, Terrance. We will hopefully see you at some point in maybe some JBR meetup at some point when the world opens up again.
What's the closest JBR location? What's the closest Bond location to Iowa?
I don't know. It might be Las Vegas. Fingers crossed. If we did, I wish there was a 50th anniversary thing for Diamonds Are Forever this year. I would be there in a heartbeat.
There was
Martin
going
is
to be,
doing a
wasn't
trip,
there?
yeah.
That's it. Yeah, Martin Mulder on the tracks have planned it, and I think it's now. It was going to be. I think it was September, October, but now I think it's early next year, isn't it, Tom? I think it got pushed back.
I have not kept up with the status of that particular trip because obviously, nothing has stayed normal, has it, over the last year? So who knows? But,
So there may be one early next year. Keep your eye out. But it would just depend on obviously what goes on in the world between now and then. But that would be pretty incredible.
Dude, yeah. Well, check out On the Tracks of 007. I'm sure you'll be able to get an update on that. But yeah, there's definitely a Diamonds Vegas trip coming up in some point in the near future. So that will be good.
That'd be awesome.
There'll be a good crowd on that trip for sure. Cool. Nice. All right then, Terrance, thanks again for joining us, my man. That was a good time had by all, I think.
Thank you, gentlemen. Been a pleasure.
Thanks, Terrance. Take care. Bye.
Very nice chat to Terrance, and what a well-dressed gentleman he was too. I'm very impressed with that.
Indeed, yeah. I felt like he would just come out of Savile Row somewhere.
Yeah, and, I felt massively underdressed. I felt like a right sort of, what's the word? Plonker, I suppose. That'll do.
Plonker. Well, maybe we are, Tom. That's it.
Maybe we are, yeah. I felt bad underdressed in my hoodie. I feel like I should have been suited and booted. Maybe we should do that every time we podcast, get the odd tux on or something. But nice good one, chat. Terrance. Good chat indeed. Once again, very nice to hear a nice range of opinions there of various things. But good stuff. Big shout out to both of our guests this week, Mike Cohen and Terrance Layhew. Both good Bond chat, some good nuggets, and a lot of fun to be had as well. Now, Chris, I don't know whether you're aware of this, my friend, but do you know what time it is for right now?
Is it time for...
Who wrote the score? Who live and die? Who played Helga Brandt? How did she die? Who wants to stop while the water in the Nivea? It's Tommy Trivia.
You were absolutely right, Chris. It was, of course, time for Tommy Trivia, where Chris whips out his 007 Trivial Pursuit deck, waves it in my face, and asks me some questions before rubbing it on a towel afterwards and drying it off. All right, let's get cracking. What have you got for me?
Here we go. Tommy, you got a choice. Cast of characters, films, vehicles, gadgets and weapons, locations, or crew.
Gadgets and weapons, please.
Yes. Okay. Are you ready?
I am.
Question number 1, Mr. Tom Sears. Who kills Vesper Lind?
Who kills Vesper Lind?
Yeah.
She does.
Who does?
Vesper Lind.
Yeah. Oh, did you say she does?
Yeah.
I thought you said he does. I was like, yeah, she does. Yeah. Locked herself. That's it. In the lift, commits suicide. Bit of a trick question now.
It was a bit of a tricky one, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, on to locations. In which state is the real Fort Knox located?
That's Kentucky, isn't it?
Yes, good man. Very nice. Solid score so far. Crew and behind the scenes. In what year was the film first released? I do like these every time. I'll give you a clue.
Go on.
The world is not enough.
That is a pretty big clue. That would be the last year of the millennium, which is 1999.
Brilliant. Okay. Excellent stuff. 3 down, 3 to go.
All right.
Question number 4. Tom Sears, who plays the character of Octopussy?
Octopussy. That would be Maud Adams.
Yeah, a lovely lady who we have both met.
Absolutely. Yeah. She was lovely, wasn't she?
She was indeed. Okay, on to what's next? The films. What is Patricia Fearing's job at Shrublands?
What's her job? She's like what would you call that?
This is a tricky one.
I want to say like a therapist of some description.
It's close, but it's like an everyday job. Oh, it's hard, this one, isn't it?
Because I feel like she's the one that comes in and sets them all up.
Yeah, so I tell you what, I'll give you the first letter. See if that helps. It's one word, and it's a type of. I'll give you one word. P. It's a tricky one, this.
Yeah. What is
Okay. I tell you what.
Yeah, go on. I don't know.
PH, if that helps. PHY.
Therapist.
Oh, yeah.
PHY. Physiotherapist.
Yes, Tom. Yes.
Nice. I got there.
Physiotherapist. Nice one. See, because that's tricky, because you see her, obviously you see her sort of, he's on the rack and they go into the showers together and have a bit of a and he massages her with a mink glove. But she sees that scar on his back, doesn't she, when she's examining him and notices his scar tissue and stuff. But yeah, physiotherapist. So there we go. Tough one. Very good. Last question of today's Tommy Trivia is, what vehicle does Bond use to get to Gonzalez hideaway in For Your Eyes Only?
What vehicle does Bond use to get to Gonzalez hideaway in For Your Eyes Only? Get to Gonzalez hideaway, that would be his Lotus, wouldn't it?
What sort of Lotus is it?
A Lotus Esprit Turbo.
Yes, you've even put an extra word on there that wasn't in
Nice.
the thing. So you get a bonus point for that one.
Nice.
So
makes up for my physiotherapist's wonkiness. Nice. Beautiful.
Excellent.
Oh, that was it. Job done.
That's
Very
it.
nice.
Job done.
Well, Chris, I hope you're prepared, because it's time to flip it on you, my friend, and test you with a new round of Busters.
That's fast becoming my favourite theme tune now.
You like that, do you? Now, for the new initiates, this is a play on Blockbusters, which is an old 80s British TV game show, but it's called Bondbusters. Chris picks a letter. I jump into the James Bond lexicon book, which you should buy if you haven't bought it yet. You definitely should do that. And I pose a question based on that letter to our man in Cardiff over there. So, Chris, what is going to be your first letter of the day?
My first letter of today, Tom, is going to be F. That's F for Foxtrot.
Okay, I'm glad it was Foxtrot. Okay, let's have a little butchers at this then. Okay. Right, now I'm gonna see what I'm going. Should I give you a James Bond Jr. question, Chris? That's the question.
Well, I won't be able to answer that.
I'm not going to. Don't you worry about that. Okay, let's have a little look. Okay. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Okay, I'm gonna. Oh, these are all tricky ones under the F. Hold on. Okay. Oh, okay, I've got one.
Right.
Or have I? Hold on. Yeah, I have. Yeah. Remember, the letter is, when it's a name, it's referring to their last name.
Is it like Flex, for instance?
Well, you've just fucking given the answer to what I was about to ask you, you motherfucker.
I thought it might have been. I thought I'd do a stab in the dark.
Son of a bitch. Right. All right. I'm.
Does that not count?
No. All right. I'm gonna. All right. You get a point.
Go on.
But we're gonna do another 3 because that's
Sorry, man. I should.
Okay. That's all right. No, it's all right. It's funny. Okay, Chris. What F is the make of car used by Elliot Carver's men to chase Bond in Hamburg? Are you a car man? You're a car man, aren't you?
I like cars, yeah, but I'm just trying to think that they. Well, I think it's a Ford, isn't it?
Yes, it is. What kind of Ford?
Oh, God, I can only remember old school Fords. It's not a Mondeo.
It sounds a bit Bondian, actually. It sounds a bit Bond villainy if you were to go into the, let's say, the continuation novels from the 80s.
I don't know, actually.
It was, of course, a Ford Scorpio.
Ah, Scorpio. Right, yeah, I definitely don't get any points for that. That is a tricky one.
Okay, give me your next letter.
Could I have a Y, please, Tom?
A Y, okay. Opposite end of the spectrum there. Okay, let's have a little look. I'm going to have a little scan through. Oh, that's a good one, but I'm not going to give you that because that's too difficult. Oh, no, I've gone onto the wrong page now. Hold on, here we go. Y. Well, there's not many Y's, Chris. There's not many Y's. Hold on, I've gone to W now. Hold on, here we go. Right, Y. Okay, let's. Oh man, this okay.
Just hit me with any of them. If I don't get them, it doesn't matter.
All right. What Y is a circular buzzsaw blade attached to a wire which allowed it to be thrown and returned like something that does that in Octopussy?
Might that possibly be a yo-yo?
Absolutely, a yo-yo buzzsaw. Well done, top marks. All right, very good.
That was a tough one as well.
That was a tough one. That is. Do you know what? Out of all the pages, you've got very few Ys. I'm going to have to complain to the porters and get them to flesh out the Ys in the second edition of the lexicon when they do the sequel. Anyway, give me your final letter.
Okay, my final letter, Tom. Could I please have a H?
An H. Okay, let's have a little butcher's at that. H. So you really have to know your alphabet to make it.
But this is good education for both of us.
It is, isn't it? All right, let's see what we've got then. Okay. What H is a large firm of high-class American jewelers owned by the Spang brothers and headquartered at West 46th Street, New York?
Oh. Do I get multiple choice on this one? No, is it? I don't know.
This is obviously a Diamonds Are Forever, the book question.
Oh, I haven't read that one for a while. I'm going to go with Hawkins.
Good. But it was, of course, Chris, the House of Diamonds.
Oh, of course it was. Now you said that. Yeah, man. Oh, well, good question. Nice one.
All right, cool. Just probably just don't choose Y next time we play that.
Right, okay, I'll have to remember that one.
All right, good stuff. So that about wraps up today's festivities. So big thanks to Mike Cohen, obviously, and Terrance Layhew. Next week we will return with another 2 listener chats with a Mr. Craig Lawrenson and a fellow Isle of Wighter, Chris, Mr. Nick Granvoyne. So we're going to be chatting to them next week. Until then, I've been Tom Sears.
I've been Chris Wright.
And James Bond Radio will return. We will see you next week, everybody.
Have fun, everyone.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Good night.